Hello everyone! Are you a movie lover? Yeah, you probably are. And there are maybe 2 or 3 films that you really love and are ready to watch them at any time in any place. But for some people, simply rewatching a film is not good enough. Instead of that, they create parodies, which usually are so funny and poorly done that you feel sorry for those people. And we're not only talking about fans that put their parodies on YouTube, we're talking about real films in real cinemas. If you're interested in seeing the ability to copy other films, then here we have 7 really lame movie ripoffs. Let's get it on. The Da Vinci Treasure. You probably already know which film was the victim of the most dishonest plagiarism. You're right, it was the first screen version of Robert Langdon's Adventures, which appeared on the screen in May 2006. The film had a budget of $125 million. It was a pretty successful film, and it set a box office record outside the States. Dan Brown, Tom Hanks, and Ron Howard were certainly enjoying the success of the Da Vinci Code, but at the same time, a similar film appeared in theaters. It was a product of the film studio The Asylum, famous for its lame parodies, also known as mockbusters. The ripoff was called The Da Vinci Treasure, and it certainly misled several naive spectators. And the copyright wasn't even a problem for the creators, because the movie had had nothing to do with the famous novel. Yes, the title is very similar, but it doesn't mean anything. But the title of the film is not the most important thing. Like in the original film, The Da Vinci Treasure tells the story of the Templars, and the main character is a scientist, although he is an anthropologist and not a symbologist. The hero has to find the secrets behind some mysterious treasures using a code left in the documents by the great Italian artist. Like it usually happens in lame parodies, the film has terrible actors, horrible graphics, and awkward and irrelevant action scenes. So, no matter what you think of the Da Vinci Code, stay away from the Da Vinci Treasure. Queen Kong. Yep, you heard it right. We're going to talk about Queen Kong, a female version of the famous giant ape, who regularly comes back to the big screen. The last King Kong movie, for example, appeared in March 2017. To be honest, this film is not simply an unfortunate copy of the original. The movie was actually created as a comedy parody of the famous film King Kong, but the creator of the original story, Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis, didn't like this kind of humor and tried in every possible way to interfere with the creation of Queen Kong. No. For that reason, the film wasn't shown in theaters, and only years later appeared on DVD. For that reason, it's hard to tell about the success or failure of the film. Nevertheless, the story and its main character are quite funny. Just look at her for Christ's sake. But for a 1976 film with a pretty tight budget, the graphics are fairly tolerable. The story is quite simple and we can tell you in a few lines. A giant female ape falls in love with her dinner, which happens to be a male human. So she ends up saving him from a dinosaur and following him through the streets of London. The story ends with a parody of the famous scene in the Empire State Building, but in this film, the scene takes place in London's Big Ben. We're not sure if this film can be considered a comedy, but it certainly has some funny moments, and the main character's awesome, like a double rainbow awesome. Two is a Family. Let's talk about a pretty unusual movie copy which surprised us, not only for being lame, but being somehow unexpected. You probably know the French film Two is a Family, in which Omar Sy plays the main character. Yeah, the same dude from the film The Intouchables. Two is a Family appeared in 2016, and it's a comedy-drama film which received good reviews from some people. But can you imagine our surprise when we found out that this is a remake of another film, which appeared on the big screen 3 years before? It was a Mexican film known as Instructions Not Included, which told the same story with the same characters, only with Mexican hats and music. The Mexican movie was pretty successful, but surprisingly enough, no one in Europe knows about it. So there are 2 different films telling the same story, and both were pretty successful, but only in their own countries. So those who love Two is a Family don't know about the existence of Instructions Not Included, and vice versa. We think this is some kind of movie paradox. Sunday School Musical. If you were a fan of the show High School Musical, and we know you were, then you are going to be outraged by the existence of this unscrupulous ripoff. The creators of Sunday School Musical stole the idea, the name, and even the poster from the original, hoping to look like a follow-up of the show or a DVD with some extras, but no. It is basically a weird and lame parody which wasn't shown in theaters or on TV, and appeared straight away on DVD. The story in general terms is different from the one told in High School Musical, but it's clear where they got the idea for it. The edition of the film is awful, and the actors are too, but the producer of the film is the same producer of The Da Vinci Treasure. Yep, you probably guessed what happened here. The Sunday School Musical is just another of the many crazy creations of film studio The Asylum. This time they didn't add any awful graphics, but instead they sing and dance, which is somehow even worse. The music wasn't a good addition to the film, but we're beginning to believe that the people from the studio don't really want to make good movies. Mac and Me. The creators of Mac and Me weren't happy to see that Steven Spielberg and E.T. were famous all over the world. No surprise there. The film received all kinds of prestigious prizes, including 4 Oscars and 2 Golden Globes. It's almost impossible not to get a little bit jealous of that. But instead of using the art of Spielberg as inspiration to create something new, Stuart Raffill, known for films like The Philadelphia Experiment and The New Swiss Family Robinson, presented a film with a similar story to E.T., only 6 years later. Like in the original film, the main conflict in Mac and Me is the fact that an alien from another planet ended up on our planet and is trying to hide from NASA. In this film, there are also 3 kids who desperately try to help the strange visitor and end up loving him. To be honest, the main difference between the films is mainly the physical look of the extraterrestrial being. In Spielberg's film, the alien is scary but cute at the same time, like a tortoise without its shell. Mac, on the other hand, is basically a hideous rubber doll with digestion problems. How else can you explain his poppy eyes and his strange face? But even looking at the poster and some scenes which are a total rip-off from E.T., you can see that this is not a movie but a long commercial. The reason is the use of product placement all over the movie, practically in every scene. Publicity in movies might be okay, especially if it's opportune and not obvious, but in Mac and Me it's in every corner, filling every inch of the screen. Even the main character, an alien called Mac, is obviously a reference to McDonald's. Something pretty obvious given that there's a whole scene filmed in one of those restaurants, and Ronald McDonald himself appears in it. And if that wasn't enough, the thirsty parents of Mac are drinking Coke. And we're not even going to talk about the actors or the story of the film. Basically, it's no wonder why this film also received several prizes, 2 Golden Raspberries, and a special place in the list of the worst movies in history. It.
Aren't you going to say hello?
And for dessert, the tastiest film in our list. Yep, you're right, we're going to talk about our beloved Pennywise, which you probably noticed in the preview of the video. And you probably know that Indian filmmakers love to remake all kinds of Hollywood films. There's an Indian Freddy Krueger, there's an Indian Terminator, and there's even a Bollywood version of Snatch. Usually in these kind of films, there's no mention of the original creators of the idea or even a hint to where the film comes from. But this time, the Indian version of the famous miniseries based on Stephen King's novel It was created following the rules of remakes. They turned the original American series, which is the main reason people don't love clowns, into a full show with 52 episodes in total. It appeared under the name of Who on the screens in 1998, 8 years after the premiere of It in the US. Of course, it wouldn't be a remake without some changes to the story based on Indian culture. It's not quite what you're thinking. The Indian Pennywise doesn't have a twin brother with the same birthmark, and it doesn't even dance, but there are differences. For example, instead of a scene with a little boat going into the sewers, here we have a more typical Indian place, a pool. But to be honest, a clown trying to attack his victim into a pool on a sunny day is not as scary as you might think. Actually, during the 52 episodes, which we definitely watched, the bad guy is actually not scary, but funny. It's not only because of his makeup or his bald head, it's because the director thought it was a good idea to make the clown blurry in all the scenes. The idea was to scare the audience with the presence of an invisible monster. but hey, there he is behind that blurry spot. So if you like Indian movies and you enjoy watching some poor special effects or some awful actors, then you should definitely check out this show. But if you want to be frightened for real, then you should hit your local cinema and check out the new version of It with Bill Skarsgård playing the scary clown. Believe us, it is worth your time. Do you like cool and entertaining experiments? Then you have to check out this channel. There you'll find a bunch of useful life hacks and a lot of cool homemade stuff that will definitely catch your attention. Subscribe and learn new tricks to surprise your friends.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks, and we'll be right back to you as fast as we can.